Hi everyone, and welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy. And my name is Mehmet. And in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at how to read a birth chart and look at the basics of how a birth chart functions and what it looks like. And also, we're going to touch up on what each house means. And then obviously, what I'll do a couple of videos on this. And then in the next lesson, we can kind of see what are the strong houses, what are the weak houses, and what planets do well in particular houses, or which signs do well in particular houses. So the way I'm going to do today's video is I'm going to be showing some slides, and also I'm going to be reading from the book I've been using in the astrology lessons, which is The Practical Astrologer. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to share my screen and bring up an image which will correspond to what I read. But what I'm going to first do is I'm going to read a chapter from this book. It's chapter 5, which is called The 12 Houses. And I'm going to read an introduction to it, and then I'll bring up my screen, and then I'll read the next part, which will correlate with what will be on the screen. So chapter 5, The 12 Houses. Interpretations of the signs and planets enables the astrologer to describe character in general psychological terms and to point out likely events in a person's life. However, until the houses are added to the interpretation, it remains necessarily vague. The 12 houses rule specific areas of life. They enable the astrologer to pinpoint the activities in which the potential of the signs and planets will be expressed. Each house represents a basic principle, but has a range of manifestations, sometimes sharply different from one another. A prime example of this is the 8th house, which can lead people into either deep involvement in the occult or a career in business, among other possibilities. The astrologer should be aware of these contrasts and try to arrive at the best interpretation, relying on astrological expertise and common sense. The technical basis lies in the rotation of the ecliptic around the Earth. The ecliptic is divided into 12 sections known as the houses, connected in meaning to the 12 signs, but whereas the signs appear to rotate around the Earth once every 24 hours, the positions of the houses is effectively fixed. During the 24-hour period, every possible combination of the sign position relative to the houses occurs, and this greatly increases the range of astrological interpretation. So what I'm going to now do is share my screen, and we're going to get a basic concept of what an astrological chart looks like. So let me just share my screen and bring this up. So let me move this to the side a bit. So this is what would be called an astrological chart. So each one of these sections here are called houses. So the first house is here, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And within the astrological chart, you have like 4 main points or 4 starting and finishing points. They're almost like doors, because each one of these 4 points in an astrological chart would be the start of a new season. So you could say spring, summer, autumn, winter, for example. So these are the 4 main points. So this one here is called the ascendant. This is called the midheaven. This is called the descendant, and this is called the Imam Coeli. And the way this works is, like it said in the book, the houses are fixed, but what happens is the zodiac is rotating clockwise. So for example, in relation to my chart, which I will bring up a bit later to give you more clarity, the sign that was in the first house when I was born was Leo, but obviously the zodiac is constantly turning clockwise. So if I was born 2 hours later, the sign that would have been here would be Virgo, for example. So this is where the time is important in your birth chart to read it in more detail. Because like I said, the zodiac wheel is turning constantly. And every 2 hours, there's a different sign within a house. But obviously, we're going to get into that in a bit more detail as we go through this video. But what I'm going to do is read from this book, and we're going to read about these 4 main angles or 4 points, which will be the ascendant, also known as the rising sign, the midheaven, the descendant, and the imam coeli. So the way also we can look at this is here it shows this is the horizon. So this would be our view. So we would see the sun come up this way, and then this is the sun at noon, and this is the sun where it sets. And this would be the sun at midnight, obviously below the horizon where we can't see it. So each one of these symbolizes 2 hours of the day. So this would be 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and 10 p.m. to 12 a.m., 12 a.m. to 2 a.m., 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., and then 4 a.m. back to 6 a.m. So each one of these sections also represents a particular part of the day. But which sign falls in here is different every 2 hours, because like I said, the zodiac is constantly turning forever. So there will always be different signs in different houses at different parts of the day. But without further ado, what we're going to do now is read about the 4 angles, which is these 4 here: the ascendant, the midheaven, the descendant, and the imam coeli, which is obviously makes the cross. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave this image up, because obviously it's going to correspond with what I'm talking about, so you can get a visual image of it while I'm reading it. So the 4 angles, the framework upon which the house divisions are based are the 4 angles. The ascendant is the degree of the ecliptic, which is rising over the eastern horizon, which is this section here. The descendant is the exact opposite of the ascendant and is the degree of the ecliptic setting over the western horizon. The midheaven is the degree of the zodiac, which is the highest point above the horizon or culmination. And the Latin translation of the midheaven is the medium coeli, or the MC. And the imam coeli, the IC, is the point directly opposite the MC, as you can see that here. This is the IC and this is the MC. In the birth chart, the ascendant is as important as the sun in determining the individual's personality and potential. The sign containing the ascendant is known as the rising sign. So what that is talking about is this sign here, this house here. But like I said, we're going to actually go into what each house means as well. The descendant reveals the individual's attitude to partnerships and what he or she seeks in a relationship. The MC rules the need for the public recognition, the status, community, and society, and the career. And the IC governs the home, the family, the background, and the need for psychological roots and stability. The 4 angles correspond to the meanings of the first house, the ascendant, the 4th house, the IC, the 7th house, the descendant, and the 10th house, the MC. These 4 houses with their corresponding angles have completely distinct meanings, but nevertheless be understood as a part of a single process of human experience. The ascendant symbolizes the birth and infancy. The IC represents the childhood and the discovery of individual identity. The descendant reveals the formation of adult relationships, and the MC represents the culmination of public achievements. The intermediate 8 houses may be understood in the same manner, each having a distinct meaning, but also forming a part of a process of development through the horoscope, progressing from the birth in the first house to the dissolution in the 12th. The beginner must learn the separate meanings of the houses, but an understanding of the processes that comes with experience. So like what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what these each individual houses mean and what they correspond to. So I don't know if any of you watch my video in simplifying the signs and planets, how like Aries is I am, Taurus is I have, Gemini is I think, Cancer is I feel. So the houses have the meaning of the houses corresponds with the sign. So the first house meaning corresponds with stuff in relation to Aries. The second house corresponds with stuff in relation to Taurus. The third house corresponds with stuff in relation to Gemini, and so on till the 12th house. But what happens is, like I said, the zodiac is also turning. So for example, in my case, in my third house, I have Libra. So what that tells me is that I do Geminian things with a Libran mind state. So it's like matching the two energies. But before we get deep into that, like I said, we're going to move on to what each of the houses mean. And also looking at this, the IC is the northern side of the equator, and the MC is the southern part of the equator. Because if you're in the north, we see the sun rising from left to right. So this is why the sun is, they say the sun rises in the east, but obviously in like the mainstream view of east is this side. But because we're looking at it from a northern hemisphere perspective, the south is always up here and the north is down here, like it shows on the diagram. But what I'm going to do now is move on to the next slide. And yeah, we're going to go through what each house means. So house 1 is appearance and outward personality. House 2 is money, possessions, value, skills. House 3 is mental activity, learning, siblings, communication. So for example, we know Gemini, the sign of Gemini is about intellect and communication and is the third sign. So the third house is all to do with Geminian stuff, but then it depends which house is there, which is the way you do these activities. So the fourth house is about your home and your parents and your roots and inner security. The fifth house is about romance, children, fun, creativity. The sixth house is about work, health, service, self-improvement. The seventh house is about marriage and partnerships. The eighth house is about sex, letting go, regeneration, other people's money, sharing. The ninth house is about higher education, philosophy, publishing, religion, travel, law. The 10th house is about career, status, reputation, vocational purpose, and taking power. The 11th house is about your friends, groups, goals, and aspirations. And the 12th house is about solitude, institutions, transcendence, and self-sabotage. So they're like the main bullet points about each house. But an easy way to learn it is, I would say, to learn these one-liners, which are the same as the signs, which I already did a video on. So you'll know that the first house is about who you are. The second house is about what you have. The third house is about how you think. The fourth house is how you feel. The fifth house is how you express yourself and show creativity, and so on. So each house has a particular purpose. And if you have planets in these particular houses, then you will have energy focused on that particular area of life. Yeah, and also as well, just to show you this, like in normal astrology where you have cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs, well, you have the same with the houses. So cardinal corresponds with angular houses, as we just read about the four angular positions of the rising sign, the MC, the descendant, and the IC. So these yellow sections are called angular houses. The succedent house, which the angular houses corresponds with cardinal energy. The succedent energy corresponds with fixed energy, and the cadent houses correspond with the mutable energy. So the cadent houses are the weakest houses, and the angular houses are the strongest houses, and obviously the succedent are a bit of a mixture of both. And yeah, what I'm showing here as well is which planets correspond with which house, or which would do well in which house. So for example, I'll show you this briefly, but what I'm going to do probably in coming lessons is that we can look at each planet in a bit more detail, and we'll go through it in more detail. But obviously, I just want to give you guys the basics because I don't want to rush into it too much. So if anyone has Mars in their first house, that's a good placement. If anyone has Venus in their second house, that's a good placement. If anyone has Mercury in their third house, that's a good placement, and so on. So these are where it's showing the planets in these particular house. This is where they'd be at their strongest. Like for example, in my house, I have a weak in my chart, I have a weak Mercury. My Mercury is in the 9th house. So anytime a planet is in, no, sorry, my Mercury is not in the 9th house. My Mercury, should I say, is in the sign of Sagittarius, and it rules in Gemini. So anytime a planet is in its opposing sign to its rulership sign, it's in a weak placement. So then Mercury in Gemini and Virgo is good, but then Mercury in Sagittarius and Pisces isn't good. But again, like I said, we're going to get into that into a bit more detail in coming videos. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to just show you my own chart. And obviously, because I know my own chart the best, I can kind of give you an example of where I have particular energies and how it all works and what it means. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to bring up, oh, actually, I should have continued sharing it. Sorry, I'm going to share my screen again and share, and I'm going to bring this up, which is yeah, this is my birth chart. So as you can see here, you've got the 12 houses going all the way around, and then on the outside you have the signs. So like I said, the signs are turning clockwise around this way, but the planets are actually moving anti-clockwise, because obviously you can see Aries, Taurus, Gemini. So for it to go through the signs in order, the planets have to travel anti-clockwise, but the signs are traveling clockwise around this way. So as you can see from my chart, my sun was in the 5th house when I was born. So that is a good placement, because the sun rules in the sign of Leo, which is the 5th sign. So the sun being in the 5th house is a good placement, because the sun is about creativity and expression, and it's in that house. So I have a good sun placement. It's in the right area of life. But then the way that changes is, how do I express myself, and in which mind state do I use to express myself? So because the sun was in Scorpio when I was born, I express myself and my creativity and my fun and my romance in a Scorpion mind state. So if I was born like 4 hours later, this Leo here would be up here. So then it would give me a total different chart. Then my sun would be in this house, which would be maybe about communication, or if it was in the second house, it would be about my possessions and values. So depending on which house the sun is in will show you how you express yourself. So like I said, my sun is in the fifth house, which is the house of creativity, fun, romance, and it's in the sign of Scorpio. So I do those activities with a Scorpion mind state. So I hope I'm making that clear. It's almost like mathematics. You've got to know what all the houses mean, what all the signs mean, and what the planets mean, and you kind of merge them all together, and it creates a unique energy. So usually, like in basic terms, when people ask you, like, the three main things would be your rising sign, so which sign was rising on the eastern horizon, your moon sign, and your sun sign. So your rising sign, as you can see, mine here is Leo. So what that shows is my personality and my initial appearance and the way people perceive me is as a Leo, which would be very hearty, very expressive, very creative. Also, it could be someone who seeks a lot of attention. Leos are also very public orientated people because the sign of Leo corresponds with the sun, and the sun is a very magnetic energy. It's not scared to be at the forefront of attention. Hence is why they say Leos love to be the center of attention. So that would be how I would come across to people. But the way I react to things and my emotions would be in relation to Taurus, because my moon here is in the sign of Taurus. So my emotions and the way I handle my emotions will be very Taurian. So then what you got to look at, what is Taurus? Well, Taurus is an earth sign, so that will show I have grounded emotions. But then also what you have to look at is which house it falls in. So my moon is in the 11th house. So the 11th house is about friendships and associations and clubs. So what this shows is that I have my emotions are all based on my social circles and my friendships. That's where I have emotional attachments with in that area of life. Whereas if my moon was in, let's just say, the 6th house, it would be about service to others and health and to be very organized and analytical. If it was in the 9th house, my emotions would be with spirituality and higher philosophy and wisdom. So it just goes to show, depending on which planet the house is in, it will correspond with that part of life. So the 10th house here is about your career and your public image. See, I don't have no planets in that house. So that's not a particular part of my life that's highlighted. All my planets are in the 3rd house, which is about communication and short journeys and intellect and education. The 4th house, which is about the home life. I have 3 planets in the 4th house: Venus, Pluto, and Saturn. And then the 5th house, I have loads of planets, which is about creativity and expression and romance and love. So I have, like, as you can see, the Sun, Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, South Node, and Neptune all in the 5th house. So I'm all about creativity and expression. But then what you've got to look at is what the planets mean and which sign they fall in. So as you can see, although my sun is in the 5th house and in Scorpio, all these other planets, Mercury, Uranus, Jupiter, South Node, and Neptune, are all in the sign of Sagittarius, which is also in the 5th house. So I have a lot of 5th house energy, which is about expression and creativity. And also, Another simple way you could like kind of guess a way a person is without even knowing the specifics of the chart is just by looking at the chart as a whole, because the top half of the chart is the daytime and the bottom half of the chart is the evening and nighttime. So people who have a lot of planets in the top half of the chart would be more extroverted people, people that like being out in the public and yeah, it's more people that go like I said, extroverted, going looking outside of themselves. But as you can see, most of my planets are all setting because, like I said, the wheel turns this way. So all these planets here are just setting. So just in a general, if someone was to look at my chart, they will say, "Oh, you're quite an introvert. You're a person that goes within," because most of the planets have set and are below the horizon. Whereas if you had all your planets up here, they would be above the horizon, which would be more of a daytime energy. Also, the planets are kind of different personalities within you. So, for example, the moon is your emotion, the sun is your expression, Mercury is your communication. So, for example, the way you would do that is I look at my sun, which I've already explained. So, and I've explained my moon. So, I'll go through Mercury is the way I communicate. So, then I'd look at where my Mercury is. My Mercury is in the sign of Sagittarius. Okay, so then what is Sagittarius about? Sagittarius is about higher wisdom, philosophy, dreams, long journeys. And also, Mercury is not just about communication, it's about education as well. So, by my Mercury being in Sagittarius, these are the things I like to talk about and learn about. So, then that's how you make the connections. Also, Jupiter, the planet of Jupiter, is what you're abundant in or what comes easy to you. So again, this is the same with it's in Sagittarius. So that would be I'm abundant in philosophy, wisdom, higher knowledge. The same with Uranus, which is about how you think outside the box and where you bring new ideas. Again, it's in this same area of philosophy, wisdom, higher knowledge, because my Uranus is in Sagittarius as well. And the same with Neptune, because Neptune is also in Sagittarius. So although my sun is in Scorpio, I have my main energies within my house is Sagittarian. Because that's another thing I want to explain as well. You can't always go by your sun sign. You have to look at where all your planets are and which signs they fall in. As you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Sagittarius. So that's almost half of the 10 planets all in Sagittarius. So I have a lot of Sagittarian energy. Yeah. So I know this might sound like a lot of mumbo jumbo to a lot of people, but the best way is, like I said, is to go through this video and you can, rather than if you want to like listen to me talking about it, you can pause it where I showed you about what each house is, and you can like kind of get a grasp of what each house is in. Then you can pull up your own chart and start learning. So you can see, so my sun, for example, if your sun is in the 10th house, then your expression and your sole purpose will be here to be a public figure and to achieve in the public and have a good career. If your sun's in the 3rd house, it might mean you're here to be a communicator or speaker or a teacher of some sort. Also, if your sun is in the 9th house or in the sign of Sagittarius, you would be a teacher as well. So the way you can look at it is Aries energy. If you have a lot of Aries energy, you will either have planets in the 1st house or planets in the sign of Aries. because the first house is Aries things. And obviously, if you've got planets in the sign of Aries, then you've got planets directly related to that energy. So yeah, it's like a big mathematical equation. I know to like a lot of beginners, this might seem quite confusing, but at the same time, there's no rush to learn these things. It's you've got to take it bit by bit. So that's why at first we went through all the signs and we went through all the planets, and then we simplified them, and then we went through the parts of the body in relation to astrology. And then last week I showed you a little bit about medical astrology, which I'll touch up on again now. So also each sign is a particular part of the body. So if you have loads of planets in a particular sign, then that means you have loads of energy concentrated in that part of the body. So in relation to my chart, I have a lot of energy concentrated in my thigh area and the hips, which is Sagittarius, the genital area, which is Scorpio, the kidneys, which is Libra, the throat area, which is Gemini, and the two hands and the lungs, which is Gemini. So that's how you would look at it medically. Once you know each sign is related to a particular part of the body, you can see where you have concentrated energy biologically as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and what I'll do is I'm going to open up, I'll open up the slides again, and I'll just go through again briefly what each house means. I'll do a little there's a little description of what each house means, and I'll read that out to you, and we can finish it off with that. So if you just bear with me for a second, so share screen again, and then I open this, and then I'll go back. So yeah, let's just read through them, and then you can get an idea. So the first house begins the zodiac and covers all the first impressions and self-appearance, leadership, new initiatives, fresh starts and beginnings. The sign on the cusp or starting edge of this house is referred to as your rising sign or ascendant, ruled by Aries. The second house covers all matters related to your immediate material and physical environment, taste, smells, sound, touch, sights. The second house also rules income, money, and self-esteem, ruled by Taurus. The third house rules all forms of communication, talking, thinking, gadgets, devices, cell phones, pagers, instant messenger. The third house also covers siblings, neighborhoods, local travel, libraries, schools, teachers, and community affairs, ruled by Gemini. The fourth house, the Cancer-ruled fourth house, sits at the very bottom of the zodiac wheel and thus rules the foundation of all things. This includes your home, privacy, your basic security, your parents, particularly your mother, children, your own mothering abilities, nurturing, and TLC, ruled by Cancer. See, I have 3 planets in the fourth house, so this energy applies to me quite a lot. I also have, I have 4 planets in the fourth house. No, 3, sorry, 3, and I have 1 in the third. And then I have 5 in the fifth house. The fifth house is ruled by the dramatic Leo, and it governs self-expression, drama, creativity, color, attention, romance, fun, and play. The sixth house is the domain of health and service. It rules schedules, organizations, routines, fitness, diet, exercise, natural and healthy living, helpfulness, and being of service to others. So yeah, if you've got a lot of sixth house energy, you'll be a very, very organized person. The seventh house is the sector of the relationships and other people. It governs all partnerships, both business and personal, and relationships associated with matters like contract, marriage, and business deals, and is ruled by Libra. The eighth house is a mysterious sector, rules birth, death, sex, transformation, mysteries, merged energies, bonding at the deepest level. The eighth house also rules other people's property and money, real estate, inheritances, investments, and is ruled by Scorpio. The ninth house covers the higher mind, expansion, international long distance travel, foreign languages, inspiration, optimism, publishing, broadcasting, universities, higher education, luck, risk, adventure, gambling, religion, philosophy, morals, and ethics, and is ruled by Sagittarius. The 10th house is at the very top and most public part of the chart. The 10th house governs structures, corporations, traditions, public image, fame, honors, achievements, awards, boundaries, rules, discipline, authority, fathers, and fatherhood. The cusp or border of the 10th house is also called the midheaven, and it clues astrologies into your career path. The 11th house rules teams, friendships, groups, societies, technology, video and electronic media, networking, social justice, rebellion, and humanitarian causes. It also rules originality, eccentricity, sudden events, surprises, invention, astronomy, science fiction, and all things futuristic, ruled by Aquarius. And finally, the 12th house completes the 12th and final house, which rules endings. The 12th house covers the final stage of a project, tying up loose ends, completions, the afterlife, old age, and surrender. It also associated with the separation from society, institutions, hospital, jails, hidden agendas, the secret enemies, and also the imagination, creativity, film, dance, poetry, journals, and the subconscious mind. So, yeah. So again, like I said, this is how the chart is laid out. The sun rises from the east. When the sun is in the middle of the sky, this is another way, by the way, how you can tell the time just by looking at the sun. So if you go out in your back garden or in the front of your house, wherever the sun is, and then you look at the sun and it's directly in the middle of the sky, well, you will know it's noontime, because once the sun is directly in the middle of your arc, that it will show you it's noon. But then if you see the sun kind of here, then you will know it is starting to set. So this is another way how you can tell the time, by looking at what position the sun is in its arc. When I say arc, is where, because obviously the sun arcs, it rises up here, gets to its strength, and then it starts setting. And obviously once it goes below the horizon, we don't see it until it rises again. So yeah, that was just a quick recap. I hope I made that clear and it wasn't too confusing. If you have any questions or I made anything unclear, you're always welcome to message me on the messenger within the Virtual Academy, and I'll get back to you straight away. Also, if you would like personalized lessons with me, or or you want a bit more of a one-on-one to ask some questions, you can also do that via the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy website, where you can contact the guys and we can make an appointment, and then I can talk to you kind of a bit more one-on-one, because you might have particular questions once you watch this and think, oh, I need to know what that means. So that's also available at the moment. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and look forward to seeing you guys soon with my next video. Peace, love, and blessings. I'm out.